This latest balance patch has drastically shifted the power, so here's a tier list for it by yours truly. In this video, I will be naming every hero in Overwatch 2 from worst to best for the ranked and casual experience for Season 1. Starting at the bottom, from D tier all the way to the top, S tier. If you like what you see, make sure to like and subscribe. Starting off D tier, coming in hot with his rocket punch is Doomfist. Doomfist, unfortunately, is the worst hero currently in the game. I think he struggles to get as much value as a tank compared to all the other tanks, main reason being he's still kind of a trade bot like how he was in Overwatch 1. Tanks thrive by anchoring for their team, which sort of feels like Doomfist as a hero struggles to do in Overwatch 2. He's still incredibly strong in targeting squishies or the backline and can get value. However, he is heavily team reliant, so this is why I put him in D tier. D for Doomfist. Second hero in D tier is Brigitta. Brig is the weakest support on the roster right now. She went from being one of the strongest supports in the game in Overwatch 1 to being one of the weakest in Overwatch 2. Brig struggles to get value as she once did because there is one less tank. One less tank for Brig essentially means less fights that are close quartered, and instead, Overwatch 2 is much more about one tank anchoring and the DPS running around and getting picks. With less smacky smack with her flail to proc her Inspire healing, and more damage flying around because there's one less tank to mitigate it, she's definitely a shadow of her former self. Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball is definitely D tier. He doesn't provide much value as a tank. No shield, no DM, no one-shot combo, insert hog here. He pretty much just rolls around, boops the enemy, and then proceeds to act like an ult battery for them afterwards. Next up, the C tier. Let's start off with the queen herself, Junker Queen. The newest addition to the Overwatch tank lineup, I put her in C tier. She isn't the worst tank in the game, but she certainly isn't the strongest. Most of her kit in Overwatch 2 is very underwhelming, but if I had to say anything about Queen, it's that her shout is still useful, but still not as good as it initially was during the beta due to nerfs. Mei. Mei has the potential to do some serious farm, but as far as the current meta goes, Mei is nothing to write home about. She succeeds in stall, bullying tanks like Reinhardt and Sigma, but other than that, she's pretty lackluster as she is unable to dole out damage like her DPS counterparts. Let's dash right into our next hero in the C tier list, the youngest of the two Shimada brothers and katana-wielding cyborg ninja, Genji. Genji is not as strong as he once was due to two recent nerfs, both of which having to do with his shurikens. The first one being, they nerfed his overall ammo from 30 to 24. The second one being, they nerfed the damage that the shurikens do from 29 to 27. Despite these two relatively massive nerfs, his nanoblade is still very effective, making for a swift team wipe, and even damage-boosted blade can do work too. Sim, our favorite light-bending, sassy DPS. Despite her incredible ability to bend light, she is a bit weaker as far as DPS go. Where Symmetra flounders is when it comes to dealing out damage, as her beam takes a bit to charge up, and being there's one less tank in Overwatch 2 for her to charge her beam off of, it can be a bit tricky building that off of squishies. Before we get into B tier, make sure you check out my socials in the description. Follow my Twitch. I'm live every Saturday through Tuesday at 1 p.m. PT. Entering the B tier, let's talk about the eldest Shimada brother, Hanzo. Hanzo is still pretty reliable in terms of a DPS pick in competitive and casual. He struggles outplaying some of the more overpowered DPS, and his rate of fire is a bit slower compared to most of the DPS cast as well. He can get pressured pretty easily by characters like Winston or Sojourn, and without much peel from his team, there is not a lot he can do. Up next, Widowmaker, our favorite cold-blooded sniper. No, literally, she's cold-blooded due to talent experiments. It's why she's blue. Widowmaker is a B-tier DPS because while she is very strong with the ability to headshot squishies and be a serious threat to tanks, her lack of mobility in the scrappy teamfight style of Overwatch 2 can leave her open to being pressured by dive heroes. Coming in swinging as our first B-tier tank, Reinhardt, this Crusader is great with Lucio and rush comps. However, Rein is unable to do damage really, not including fire strikes, unless he is at a close range. He has to drop his shield to swing his hammer on the enemy team, leaving his team vulnerable to enemy team anti-nades and damage, as well as his teammates. Reinhardt can be good, however, he just needs a rush comp to enable him really well. Mercy, my favorite girl. I myself am a Mercy main, so I feel I can speak on her a bit. Mercy is B tier because her movement is akin to a golden snitch in a Quidditch match, aka incredibly hard to catch. This allows her to escape and have a very good propensity for stalling. The weaker side of her kit are a few things. Her kit is a single target healing, and it's a bit low compared to the damage just flying around in Overwatch 2. Her res is also a bit slow for the pace of Overwatch 2, so resing can be a bit harder without sometimes accidentally trading. She is very good though at enabling flyer heroes such as Pharah and Echo, as well as hit scans and various projectiles. Mercy thrives in her ability to pocket other characters and enable them for greatness. Following up our favorite Guardian Angel, let's talk about one of the toughest heroes on the Overwatch block, Soldier 76. He is B tier because he's pretty consistent overall. He can pump out a consistent amount of damage, and he can sprint away from things if things get too hairy. His ult is pretty effective because with one less tank, it allows him to tack visor down the enemy team with ease. Soldier's ult and consistent damage are really what help him feel like such a reliable pick. Diva. Diva has been one of the more dependable tank picks because of her mobility, damage, and defense matrix. Her defense matrix allows her to eat. Yes, literally eat. So much damage, and in some cases, ultimates. This can be crucial in saving her teammates, as well as completely tilting the enemy team by making them feel useless. She can get countered by Roadhog though, because he can easily hook her regardless of her DM, and can end up getting demeched easily if she doesn't use her defense matrix properly, thus feeding the enemy team ult charge. Cassidy, our favorite cowboy, is a B-tier DPS. He's sturdy, can dish out nasty headshots, as well as a dirty little combo with his sticky bomb. A threat to squishies and tanks alike, Cassidy is not easily trifled with. It's just unfortunate for him that there are stronger DPS heroes to pick on the roster. A menace, feared by DPS and supports alike, Moira, the Irish Talon healer. She is quite the threat to squishies. Why, you may ask? Her penchant for damage as well as her orb ability, which acts as a double-sided coin ability. On one hand, she can use it to heal herself or teammates, making her an excellent duelist. The other orb can be used to do damage. This can be helped to use win a duel, or pressure a DPS that is on the flank back. Moira's lock-on damage ability and spray to heal also makes her a strong pick in all elos. What her kit lacks in utility, it makes up for in raw healing output and damage. Her fade also allows her to escape tricky situations that might not be going in her favor. Torbjorn. Torbjorn is a decent DPS in regards to how much damage he is able to put out. He is mainly strong due to his turret. His turret offers a decent amount of additional damage, and a lot of the times, the enemy team just ignores that it exists. Torb's ultimate also takes up a lot of space, and can make it difficult for the enemy team to push wherever he ults. Starting off A tier, let's do A for Ashe. Ashe is an extremely good DPS in the current season. Her dynamite allows her to pressure out and pressure back the enemy, as well as build up charge for her ult safely, Bob. Bob, her robotic butler and ultimate, who happens to carry some heavy artillery, is pretty useful during teamfights, as he's able to take up a lot of space and suppress the enemy squishies back. She also complements Mercy well, but regardless, Ashe can still be outperformed by Sojourn. Thus is why she's an A-tier pick. Up next, Junkrat. Junk succeeds by just spamming Junk, aka huge amounts of damage. He doesn't require much aim, which is why I think this tends to make him a pretty reliable pick in casual or competitive. His ultimate is a little bit lackluster, but can be useful in tight corridors. Junkrat's main counters are flyers, such as Pharah or Echo. He succeeds on maps or spots that are close quarters fighting, like Koth maps. Bastion, the bad battle Omnic turned good, has had quite a bit of a rework since Overwatch 1. Bastion is A tier because he is able to reconfigure into turret mode, which not only gives him a low profile, he's able to also dish out hideous amounts of damage. His ult is easily dodgeable, but if you're squishy in a tight space, you have no escape, it's very unforgiving. Peaceful, yet lethal. Coming up next is the Omnic Monk, Zenyatta. What Zenyatta lacks in movement-based healing, he makes up for it in damage in his ultimate. Zenyatta is single-target healing outside of his ultimate, much like Mercy. However, unlike the Valkyrie, Zenyatta has a Discord orb as well. When placed on the enemy, increases all damage done to them by 30%. Zenyatta also has a primary fire, as well as a charged up right click, both which do a lot of damage. Zen's ult is also pretty strong all things considered. It heals 300 per second, nulling almost all burst damage in the game and ultimates as well. Zen's weak point is in his mobility, but he's still a strong pick, which is why he's A tier. Queen of the Skies and Anna Amari's daughter, up next is Pharah. Pharah is a jetpack-toting, rocket-launching, wielding DPS that pairs well with Mercy. She's very strong in Overwatch 2 because there is one less tank to help soak up her rocket damage, while the DPS attempt to rid the skies of pharmacy. She excels against heroes like Roadhog, Junkrat, Sim, and the majority of the support cast, and particularly on Koth maps. Her ultimate also does 1,200 damage per second if you can be clever enough and catch the enemy team by surprise. Moving on from Pharah, we have the quote-unquote I'm you but better, aka Echo. Echo truly is the better of the two flyers. Her primary fire and her secondary fire allow her to combo squishies and even tanks. By finishing them off with her focus beam, she can build ultimate fast, especially with a Mercy pocket, whom she pairs well with. Her ult allows her to copy anyone in the game for up to 15 seconds, as long as the enemy team can't kill the copy. While in copy form, she gets ult 6.5 times faster than you normally do. These abilities allow her to be a threatening opposition no matter the elo or game mode. Baptiste. While back in Overwatch 1 was arguably one of the most meta support for years, he is still very strong in Overwatch 2. His ability to heal and do a lot of damage simultaneously makes him difficult to deal with, as well as his jump ability, which can allow him to escape situations at worst and at the least buy him some time. His lamp ability, which essentially allows you to be immortal while standing in it, is still very strong as it was in Overwatch 1. His ultimate, Amplification Matrix, is also really good in tight spaces or chokes in Overwatch 2. Baptiste is really only outshined by Kiriko or Ana. Even he can still hold his own ground. Sigma, much like in Overwatch 1, is still a solid tank pick when playing competitive or casuals in Overwatch 2, which is why he's A tier. His Hyperspheres can do a good amount of DPS and have a knockback ability as well. His Rock ability can stun enemy heroes or even knock some of them out of their ultimates completely. His Kinetic Grasp, which is similar to Diva's defense matrix, is also useful in swallowing up damage or ultimates. His ult is still decent and can lift a team of squishies into the air, making it easy for Sigma and his team to clean up. His only real counters are other tanks and a few DPS. Somber was, completely for lack of a better term, broken upon the release of Overwatch 2. Despite some nerfs though since then, she's still a pretty solid DPS pick. Her ability to hack her enemies and do additional 25% damage to them while they are hacked is very, very strong. Her EMP also has this feature, except when she EMPs the entire team, her whole team also benefits from that additional 25% damage. She can also hack in stealth, making her an absolute nightmare for backlines. The strongest woman in the world, Zarya, is an A tier tank. She probably would be S tier if it wasn't for her recent nerfs to her bubbles. The duration went from being 2.5 to 2 seconds. And the cooldown was increased from 10 to 11 seconds. While not completely gutting her, it certainly has affected her ranking on this tier list. However, regardless of nerfs, her damage output while fully charged and double bubbles make her an enemy tank not to be trifled with. Her ultimate, Grav, is also a pretty solid ult, as heroes with escape abilities like Moira and Reaper can't get out of it, making them easy to finish off once caught. Zarya can work well in rush comps, as well as alongside heroes like Mercy. Her main issue is that she doesn't have a lot of mobility or one-shot potential like Hog, but she's still a very good tank. S tier, the creme de la creme hero picks you should be playing in comp or casuals if you want to win. Cracking open this S tier treasure chest of heroes, let us begin with Reaper. Reaper is S tier because who would have thought he's great in Overwatch 2 at focusing the only tank there is. Since there is one less tank, the enemy tank will end up receiving a lot of Reaper's attention. Reaper does a lot of damage, so not only is he a threat to tanks, he is a threat to squishies as well. His lifesteal and damage output makes him hard to kill and an excellent duelist. His ultimate is also somewhat stronger in Overwatch 2 because, well, there's one less tank to soak up the Death Blossom. Lucio, Lucio, the first support in S tier. Lucio is arguably one of the best supports in the game right now and has been for years. There have only been brief points in Overwatch's history where he was not meta, and there is a reason for that: his speed boost. Lucio's speed boost allows him to speed his teammates around, as well as himself, allowing him to get into situations where he can frag squishies and get out. Lucio is really good with Kiriko, and most tanks, he is able to enable them far greater than normal with his speed boost. He has AoE healing, which ends up being useful to flick to while speeding your team around. He's an excellent duelist too, as well as an excellent healer. Overall, all around, S tier. The time-traveling poster child of Overwatch, Tracer. Tracer is S tier because of her ability to get things done on her own. She has 3 blinks, which allow her to cut through the maps quickly, focus down supports, and get in and out of duels quickly. Her recall ability, which when she is in a bad situation or low health, or both, essentially allows her to quote-unquote go back in time to a point where she is safe. And she can even regain health by traveling back a few seconds prior when she wasn't critical. She can engage and disengage well, and she doesn't need to rely on supports as much as she can zip around the map to grab health packs. Her ultimate, Pulse Bomb, does 350 damage, and when combined with ults like Zarya Grav, can wipe teams. She's significantly annoying for all supports to deal with too. All of these things making her an S tier DPS. Even if she got a complete rework, Erisa is still one of the strongest heroes in the game. While her primary fire and fortify are more or less the same, her kit has a whole new look. Her javelin, which stuns her enemies with a knockback, in addition to hitting a wall where a target can be pinned to temporarily, rendering them completely out of commission or useless. Her javelin can also spin, like as if she's whirling a baton, but she's no ordinary cheerleader. This baton-spinning Omnic terror puppy can speed onto enemies, push them back, and eat damage as well as ults with this ability, thus nulling enemies attempting to stop her. Her ult is called Terra Surge, which in my opinion should be called Terror Surge because in it she fortifies, slurps in her enemies, and anchors them to the ground, all while charging up massive amounts of surge damage. Erisa players can also choose to release it early, wiping low health heroes caught up into her ultimate. The scientist gorilla from the moon, aka Winston, is also an S tier tank. He is strong because of his ability to chase squishies, and with one less tank, he finds himself having more time to be a menace to squishies in the backline. Winston's Tesla cannon, just like in Overwatch 1, is powerful on close-quarter maps for latching onto supports. Now though, when supports try to run, he has the ability to shoot rods of electricity out of his Tesla cannon, thus allowing him to pressure the enemy at mid to long-range distance. His ult, Primal Rage, is good for stalling and ulting enemy players off the point too. Winston's main counters are Ana and Roadhog, but other than that, he's a solid pick. Up next, Ana, our first S-tier support. Ana was good in Overwatch 1, but she's arguably even better in Overwatch 2. Her sleep dart allows her to punish players who dive her foolishly, and she's also a fierce duelist when being dove. She can sleep, nade, and primary fire combo sleeping squishies who attempt to dive her. Her biotic nade also allows her to heal teammates as well as amplify all additional healing by a 50% increase, and if it hits enemies, they become anti-naded. This is also known in the community as antied. They are unable to be healed. However, Kiriko's Suzu and Zarya bubble can cleanse this. Her ultimate nano boost does 250 healing to the applied target, as well as a 50% increase in damage to the applied target, who is also benefiting from a 20% damage reduction. Ana's main weakness is that she has no mobility, but regardless, her kit is still so strong, she honestly doesn't really need it. Roadhog. Roadhog is already such a strong character in terms of kit. He has a large health pool, a vape to help him sustain, does a lot of damage, and has a one-shot combo with his hook. The main thing about Hog, while being a powerful tank, what truly makes him S tier this season is Kiriko. Kiriko takes away all of Hog's counters while she is on his team. It makes him unstoppable, truly the best tank of the game, and a godlike force to be reckoned with. Kiriko. Kiriko is the best support in the game, as well as the newest addition to Overwatch. Welcome. Kiriko is astronomically powerful because of many things. She does a decent amount of healing, but her healing isn't what makes it or breaks it for her. The strong parts of her kit is that she can do a lot of damage. Her primary fire, her kunais, do 40 damage per body shot, but 120 per headshot. Her next OP ability is called Swift Step. Swift Step allows her to teleport to a teammate at a max range of 35 meters and have 0.25 seconds of invulnerability. Her protection Suzu, also known as Suzu in the community, does a healing of 50 HP. It has a slight knockback for opponent and cleanses her teammates, making them free from harm such as Biotic Grenade, Sleep Dart, Ashe's Dynamite, Junker Queen's Rampage, May's Blizzard, Reinhardt's Earth Shatter, Somber's Hack, Widowmaker's Venom Mine, Zenyatta's Orb, just to name a few. It can be eaten by Diva's Defense Matrix, Erisa's Javelin Spin, and Sigma's Kinetic Grasp. Her ultimate, Kitsune Rush, buffs all of Kiriko's teammates standing within it with an increased 50% movement, rate of fire, reload speed, and 3 times the reduction for cooldowns. This ultimate, combined with Suzu, make her honestly just the best support in the game. She's unbeatable. And finally, I present to you the best of the best, the S tier, Sojourn. Sojourn, unironically, is the best hero in the game right now. Sojourn's railgun is really the strongest part of her kit. Well, it's the main part of her kit. She can do 126 damage per second. With each bit of damage on an enemy hero or their barriers, her railgun generates energy. This energy charges up her secondary, which can do up to 130 damage and can headshot. She also has an ability called Power Slide, which can be cancelled into a high leap at any point by jumping. Did I mention she can also fire her railgun while sliding? The cooldown on her slide is 6 seconds, so she's able to reposition quickly while dealing massive amounts of damage. The Meatball, aka the Disruptor Shot, is one of Sojourn's other abilities that does a total of 210 damage over time and 51 per second. The Meatball has a max range of 30 meters and slows enemies that are inside of it. Her ultimate, Overclock, lasts for 8 seconds and allows her railgun energy to auto-charge for the entire duration of the ult. She can cut through enemy team like butter and headshot them with ease, making you fear the words, "This ends now." This concludes my Season 1 tier list for competitive and casual. Make sure to check out my links in the description if you enjoyed this video, and please remember to like and subscribe, it helps me a lot. Until next time, GG's.